Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Marie, and I will be the host for today's webinar dealing with building a more efficient and effective product development process. This webinar is the final episode of our three-part series where our experts will give you an overview on how to use Jama Connect to optimize your product and system development processes. Before we begin, I wanted to cover a few housekeeping items with you. So first, at the bottom of your screens are multiple application engagement tools that you can use. All those engagement tools are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your desktop space. You can also expand your presentation area or maximize it to full screen by clicking on the arrows in the top right corner. Something also important for you, you can find additional answers to some common technical issues located in the help widget at the bottom of your screen. Finally, if you have any questions during the webinar, we are here to answer them live, so you can submit them through the Q&A widget. We'll try to answer these during the presentation, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, we will follow up by email. Please note that a copy of today's slide deck and also additional help materials related to the topic are available in the resource list located on the right of the presentation area. Lastly, this webinar will be recorded and sent via the email you registered with. It will also be available to watch later on Jama's website. So now allow me to introduce you to our speaker. So today, Colin White, who is a senior business consultant, will run the presentation. Colin joined Jama Software last year, and his goal at Jama is to help customers to be successful and get value as soon as possible with the tool. So I'll let Colin take it over from there. He will walk you through the agenda and start his presentation.
Hello, everybody. My name is Colin White, and I'm delighted to take you through today's presentation. So today, we're going to be looking at 4 main points. What are the challenges that teams face while building complex projects? How do they then collaborate more effectively within Jama, and how do they collaborate within their product development process compared to what they might be doing before they start using Jama? And then feeding on from that, how does that enable them to ensure better compliance with industry standards or rules and regulations that they need to work within? And finally, I'm going to touch upon how we can accelerate the verification and validation between different systems, and obviously then how that ties back to being more compliant and collaborating throughout your engineering process. Okay, so what is it that we're hearing from our customers? Very often, teams are choosing Jama and tools like Jama because they want to move faster than they currently are. They feel that they're held up by approval times. They want to have earlier sight of problems that are coming because, products are becoming more complex, and where previously they were purely mechanical, now there's electronics, and where there's electronics, there's software. So you end up with much more complexity, and it becomes difficult to see from one discipline into another when people are using different teams. And when there's different teams, there's different tools, often different sites. So how do people get their product to market in a known good way with high quality when you've got all these extra dimensions of complexity that comes in? And really that comes down to processes and working out how to make the teams communicate and work within processes and perhaps optimize those processes as you roll out a tool like Jama. So I guess I would summarize that sort of first challenge really as saying that teams are communicating. Of course, we are all using Slack and email, various other tools, perhaps documents in Word and Excel and those kinds of things. But how do we actually talk about them and work and reason about those work items? It happens across all kinds of teams. We see problems where, the hardware teams have not correctly communicated requirements to the software teams. And people have known about it in one team, but they're not necessarily sharing it with others. And likewise, when the marketing team has got new ideas, they don't necessarily propagate those to the rest of the company as quickly and as efficiently as they might. So it can take a long time, to arrange meetings between internal and external teams, and it can really spend a long time where people are filled out almost gold plate big documents before they share them ready for just that one meeting. So what we want to enable and what we want to really point out is that if you collaborate in a structured way, you can work around the actual data that's important that you're communicating about. And what Jama provides is really a single communication platform. So as people bring their data into Jama, what we're able to do is kind of really move from that, let's say, that physical and cultural silo where you're operating on different teams and different sites. And instead of sending your message in an email alongside a document, what you can do is comment directly on that data inside Jama. So for example, here you can see that you get there's a screenshot here of the stream feature within Jama. What that means is that just by opening the Jama homepage, people can get a view of what is going on. They can see where they've been mentioned, they can see the chat that's happening, and you can see who has done what recently. And of course, then if there's anything that needs, my immediate attention, I can wade right on in and start work on the content directly within Jama. So there's less need to worry about the formatting of documents. Who am I going to offend by making comments or changes in this particular Word document? I can just make comments, collaborate in the tool directly, and then if I want to just make work to the change, if I just want to change things in the tool directly, I can. Jama is always keeping track of what's happening. One of my colleagues said a couple of weeks ago, Jama is like Vegas. What happens in Jama stays in Jama. This means that teams can work fearlessly. By making changes and collaborating and just getting on with it, you can make the work and the contribution directly in the tool. And then if you need to change it or back it out, that versioning system lets you do that. By putting things in the tool in a, let's say, unified set of processes and practices, and I'm going to speak a little bit about how we do that as we go forward, but by having the processes all inside Jama and maybe different teams working in slightly different ways, they can all talk together and contribute together on each other's work within the tool. So how does that actually look? There's some simple things you can do when you're in Jama. You can just involve people directly. So that several places throughout the tool, there are comment boxes. You can just mention somebody and it will already directly invite them into the system. So we can include people for the first time just by, pretty much just like a digital tap on the shoulder and say, welcome into the tool, and just get involved. You can do that kind of informally around the content that's structured inside Jama, but also we have the review center. So wherever I am in the many places in the tool, I can just start a review and I can invite people to that review to look at just one or two items or entire sets, equivalents of previous document-centric ways of working. So I can have people just included in my work and included in that conversation around the sets of data. As we do that, what this lets us do is move teams into working in a more structured way. So as well as being able to collaborate around the content, we can organize the content itself, because at the end of the day, that's the work, right? That's the bit that we're communicating around, and we're saying, well, we can get more efficient by communicating adjacent to the work rather than in a separate tool. And many projects, for example, will start with, quite a heavy research or definition type phase. And you can often end up with people, waiting to get started. So if you are putting the data into Jama in a structured way, like this example we have here, you can really move teams out of this idea of filling in some big heavy template. They've got lots of boilerplate that needs to be completed. Perhaps there's complicated formatting or macros that need to be dealt with in Office tools. What we can do is basically say to people, here is a structured way of working. Here is a way of organizing data that previously you needed to complete some document or some heavy spreadsheets. What we can do is build out a structure for the data, and then we can kind of transition so that you can move from working in silos in complicated documents into a finer grained, self-contained set of items, right? So each requirement that previously was in a big flat document can now kind of stand alone and be traced to a test case, for example.